Imagine this paradox for a moment. Medieval castle kitchens were some of the hottest places on earth, roaring with open fires the size of small rooms. Yet the people who worked there, castle cooks, often finished their shifts numb with cold, fingers cracked, breath fogging the air as if they'd been outdoors all day. And here's the mystery that pulls us in. How did they survive, day after day, year after year, without anything resembling a heating system as we know it? No radiators, no furnaces, no cosy warmth spreading evenly through stone halls, just raw fire and brutal winter stone. And yet they cooked feasts for kings, banquets for armies, and meals for hundreds, somehow mastering an environment that could burn you alive one moment and freeze you the next. And as we peel back the layers of smoke, stone, and forgotten knowledge, we'll discover that survival in those kitchens wasn't luck. It was a carefully engineered dance between architecture, habit, timing, and human ingenuity that modern homes, surprisingly, have almost completely forgotten. To understand how castle cooks endured, you have to picture the world they lived in, because medieval castles weren't built for comfort. They were built for defence. Thick stone walls that trapped cold like a cellar, narrow windows that bled heat, and kitchens deliberately placed away from living quarters so fires wouldn't burn the entire fortress down, often in separate buildings or cavernous ground-level rooms where heat vanished into stone as fast as it was created. And this was an age when heating meant one thing only: fire. And fire was dangerous, expensive, and unpredictable. So instead of warming entire spaces, people warmed moments, tasks, and bodies, meaning cooks worked in cycles tied to daylight, meal schedules, and seasons, learning through generations of trial and error when to stand near the hearth, when to retreat, when to move, and when to let the cold do its work, like preserving meat or slowing spoilage. And over centuries, these kitchens became laboratories of survival knowledge, passed down quietly, never written in manuals, just absorbed by apprentices who learned to read the stone, the smoke, and the air itself. Now, here's where the real ingenuity reveals itself, because castle cooks didn't heat spaces, they controlled heat flow. Imagine a massive open hearth built low and wide, so radiant heat warmed bodies directly rather than air. You step close when stirring a cauldron, then back away when chopping vegetables, always moving, always regulating your own temperature. And those fires were fueled not just by wood, but by timing. Lit hours before cooking began, so stone floors and walls absorbed heat, acting like primitive thermal batteries that released warmth slowly even after flames died down. And you know what's fascinating? The cooks wore layered wool and linen, not just for warmth, but for moisture control, because sweat was dangerous. Once damp cloth cooled, hypothermia followed, so movements were deliberate, almost choreographed, and ventilation shafts weren't just for smoke. They pulled cold air away from the body while keeping radiant heat close, creating invisible currents you could feel if you worked there long enough, and even the food itself played a role. Boiling stews and roasting meats released steam and heat strategically, turning cooking into climate control long before the term existed. And here's the part that hits close to home, because many of these techniques are quietly resurfacing today. You see them in off-grid homes, passive solar buildings, and survival shelters, all borrowing from the same principles castle cooks lived by. Heat the person, not the room. Store warmth in mass, stone, brick, water. Release it slowly. Dress for regulation, not insulation alone, and move with purpose. Imagine applying this during power outages, winter camping, or even reducing heating bills by creating warm zones instead of overheating entire houses. The medieval kitchen teaches us that comfort isn't about constant warmth. It's about control, rhythm, and understanding how your environment breathes. And maybe that's why these lessons were forgotten, because central heating made us passive, no longer reading the air, no longer listening to walls, no longer adapting moment by moment the way those cooks had to, just turning a dial and trusting a machine. So when you think about castle cooks surviving without heating systems, you're really looking at a lost art of human resilience. A reminder that comfort once came from knowledge, not technology, from observation, not automation, and as the modern world faces energy shortages, climate uncertainty, and a renewed interest in sustainable living, these smoky stone-walled kitchens suddenly feel less like relics and more like instruction manuals written in fire and frost. And maybe the greatest lesson they leave us is this. You don't need to dominate your environment to survive it. Sometimes you just need to understand it, work with it, and respect its limits. And if this journey through forgotten ingenuity sparked your curiosity, consider sharing it, subscribing, or continuing to explore the hidden wisdom of the past. Because history, when listened to carefully, still knows how to keep us alive.